The icy water crashed over Amora's face, filling her lungs with liquid fire. She couldn't move her legs, couldn't kick, couldn't fight the current dragging her downstream. Above the surface, she heard their voices fading, her own brother's voice among them, shouting something she couldn't make out anymore. The rope they'd tied around her waist grew slack as the current pulled her further from the village, further from everything she'd ever known. Amora had been born with a curse, or so they called it. At 7 years old, a fever had swept through her body like wildfire, leaving her legs useless, dead weight beneath her. For 15 years after that, she'd dragged herself around her family's hut, learning to weave baskets with her mother, grinding grain with her strong arms, proving she could still contribute. But in the Kothari tribe, a disabled daughter was more than a burden. She was a stain on the family's honor, a mouth to feed who would never bring bride price, never bear children to strengthen the clan. Then the merchant came from across the mountains. His name was Declan, a foreign trader with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of storm clouds. He needed a wife, he said, someone to keep his house in the valley settlement 3 days' journey away. He didn't care about her legs. He'd seen her weaving, watched her laugh with the children who didn't yet understand she was supposed to be pitted. He offered her father 10 goats, 5 bolts of cloth, and a leather pouch heavy with silver coins. Her father had accepted immediately. Her mother cried but said nothing. The arrangement was made, and Amora felt something she hadn't experienced in years, hope. Perhaps away from the Kothari, away from the whispers and the pitying stares, she could simply be a woman. A wife. Maybe even happy. The wedding ceremony was brief. Declan tied the red cord around her wrist, marking her as his. He promised to return in 2 days with a cart to take her to his home. He seemed kind, patient, not repulsed by her condition. When he left, Amora let herself imagine a future filled with small comforts, a home of her own, someone who saw her as more than her useless legs. But that night, the elders gathered. Old grandmother Kisi, who delivered half the village babies and buried the other half when they grew old, declared that allowing Amora to leave would bring catastrophe. A broken woman carrying the tribe's blood into foreign lands? Unthinkable. The ancestors would be furious. Crops would fail. Children would sicken. The tribe would suffer for allowing this abomination. Amora's father tried to argue, thinking of the silver he'd already spent in his mind. But the elders were absolute. The marriage could not stand. The merchant would be told she'd died of sudden illness. He would be given back his payment. And Amora, she would be given to the river. It was her brother Kofi who came for her at dawn. She'd watched him grow from a laughing boy to a stern young warrior, always seeking the elders' approval. He wouldn't meet her eyes as he lifted her from her sleeping mat, carrying her like she weighed nothing. Other men followed, their faces hidden in the pre-dawn darkness. They walked to where the river ran fastest, where the water churned white over hidden rocks. Her mother appeared on the path, her face streaked with tears, but she didn't speak. Didn't protest. She simply pressed a small wooden carving into Amora's hand, the figure of a bird her father had made when Amora was born. Then she turned away, her shoulders shaking. They tied the rope loosely, a pretense of mercy. If she somehow survived the river, they could say the gods had spoken. But everyone knew what the rapids did to bodies. Kofi whispered, "Forgive me, sister," before they threw her in. Now the water pulled her deeper, and Amora's lungs screamed for air. The bird carving slipped from her fingers, lost to the current. Her vision darkened at the edges. She thought of Declan, of the life that had been promised and stolen in the same breath. Then her head struck something hard, and there was only blackness and the roar of water claiming what the tribe had discarded. Warmth came first, seeping into her frozen bones before consciousness returned. Amora became aware of crackling sounds, the smell of burning wood, the scratch of rough wool against her skin. Her body ached everywhere, a deep bruising pain that pulsed with each breath. When she finally forced her eyes open, she found herself staring at an unfamiliar wooden ceiling, dark beams crossed with age and smoke stains. She tried to sit up, but her arms trembled with exhaustion. A shadow moved at the edge of her vision, and panic flared in her chest. Had the elders sent someone to finish what the river started? Easy now. You've been out for 2 days. The voice was deep, unfamiliar, speaking her language with a thick accent. A man's face appeared above her, not Kothari, not from any tribe she recognized. His skin was darker than Declan's, almost black, with silver threading through his short hair. Scars marked his weathered face, including a thick one that cut through his left eyebrow. "I'm Tobias. Found you caught in the fishing nets downriver. Thought you were dead until you coughed up half the river on my boat." Amora's mind struggled to process his words. 2 days. She'd been unconscious for 2 days. Where? Her voice cracked, raw from the water she'd swallowed. Where am I? My cabin, about 15 miles downstream from where you went in. He moved away, returning with a clay cup. Here. Drink slowly. It's just water, but your stomach's been empty too long. She took the cup with shaking hands, sipping carefully. The water tasted clean, nothing like the muddy river that had tried to kill her. As her head cleared, she noticed her surroundings more carefully. The cabin was small but well maintained, with fishing nets hung to dry on one wall, a stone fireplace, shelves lined with jars and tools. Through a small window, she could see trees and hear birdsong. You should be dead, Tobias said, not unkindly. The way that rope was tied, the rocks in those rapids, someone meant for you to drown. Question is, why would anyone throw a young woman in the river like garbage? The memories crashed back. The elder's decree. Kofi's apologetic face. Her mother turning away. The wedding that never was. Amora's throat tightened, but she forced the words out. I was married. Or supposed to be. The elders said I would curse the tribe if I left. So they gave me to the river instead. Tobias studied her for a long moment, then glanced down at her legs, still covered by the blanket. Because you can't walk. It wasn't a question, but she nodded anyway. I've been paralyzed since I was 7. A man from across the mountains wanted to marry me anyway. He didn't care about my legs. But the tribe couldn't allow it. Better I die than bring shame to the Kothori. Something dark flickered across Tobias's face. I know your tribe. Proud people. Hard people. I worked the river trade routes for 30 years, seen all kinds. The Kothori value strength above all else. Show any weakness, and you're expendable. He spat into the fire. Foolish, throwing away a life because of old superstitions and wounded pride. Why did you save me? Amora asked. You could have let me stay in the nets. Left me to the river. Could have, Tobias agreed. But I didn't build this life to become the kind of man who watches people die when he can help. He poured himself water from a ceramic jug. I left my own people years ago. They had rules too, stupid rules about who deserved respect and who didn't. I chose the river instead. Out here, you make your own rules. Amora felt tears burning behind her eyes but refused to let them fall. She'd cried enough in her life. The merchant, Declan. He paid bride price for me. They'll tell him I died of illness. He'll never know what they did. Declan Ross. Tobias's eyebrows rose. Scottish trader, runs the supply route to the valley settlements? That Declan? Yes. You know him? Everyone on the river knows Declan. Good man, fair trader. Honest, which is rare in this business. Tobias rubbed his scarred jaw thoughtfully. He comes through here every few weeks, trading fish for mountain goods. Due back any day now, actually. Hope sparked in Amora's chest, painful and desperate. Then I could, if I could see him, explain what happened. Hold on, Tobias raised a hand. You need to think this through. Your tribe believes you're dead. That gives you something precious, freedom. You go back to that merchant, word might get back to the Kothori. They could come for you again, finish the job properly. Or they might go after him for stirring up trouble. But he paid for me. Made promises. And you owe him nothing. Those promises were made by people who then tried to murder you. You're not property to be bought and sold, go. You're a survivor who gets to choose what happens next. Amora had never thought of it that way. In Kothori culture, agreements were sacred, especially marriage contracts. Breaking them invited disaster. But Tobias was right, the tribe had broken the contract first when they threw her in the river. She owed them nothing. Not honor, not loyalty, not her life. What would I do? She asked quietly. I have no family now, no tribe, no home. I can't walk, can't hunt, can't travel alone. I'm not exactly built for survival. Tobias snorted. You survived the river, didn't you? Survived 2 days unconscious without drowning on your own spit. You're tougher than you think. He stood, joints cracking with age. You can stay here while you figure things out. I could use help with the nets, mending and such. Your arms look strong enough. We'll see how things go when Declan shows up. Maybe you talk to him, maybe you don't. Your choice, not mine. 6 days after waking in Tobias's cabin, Amora heard the sounds that would change everything again. Horses' hooves on the dirt path, wheels creaking, men's voices calling greetings. She was outside in her usual spot, sitting on a low stool while she mended fishing nets with practiced hands. Tobias had rigged a simple system of ropes and pulleys so she could move herself around the cabin and yard, dragging her useless legs behind her but maintaining her independence and dignity. She looked up to see a wagon approaching, pulled by 2 sturdy horses. And there, climbing down from the driver's seat, was Declan. He looked exactly as she remembered, weathered face, storm-gray eyes, that careful way he moved that suggested a man who thought before he acted. He hadn't seen her yet, focused on greeting Tobias with the easy familiarity of old trading partners. "Tobias, you old river rat. I've got that tobacco you wanted, and fresh venison from the mountain hunters." Declan's voice carried across the yard, warm and alive. "How's the fishing been?" "Good enough to keep me fed," Tobias replied, but his voice carried an odd tension. "Come inside. We need to talk." That's when Declan noticed her. His eyes widened, and all color drained from his face. "Amora?" Her name came out as barely a whisper, choked with disbelief. "But they said you were dead. Fever took you the night before I was meant to collect you." She set down the net carefully, buying herself time to find words. "I didn't die of fever." Declan crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides, dropping to his knees beside her stool. His hands hovered near her shoulders, wanting to touch but unsure if he should. "What happened? Tell me everything." So she did. She told him about the Elder's decree, the night they came for her, the river's cold embrace. Tobias stood nearby, arms crossed, watching Declan's face darken with each word. When she finished, silence hung heavy in the mountain air, broken only by birds and the distant rush of water. "They murdered you." Declan's voice was flat, dangerous. "Those bastards took my silver, looked me in the eye, and lied while they murdered you. Your own father, your brother." He stood abruptly, pacing like a caged animal. "I'll go back there. I'll demand justice, call a council of the regional chiefs. The Kothori can't just." "They can," Amora interrupted quietly. "And they did. I'm dead to them, Declan. Officially, permanently dead. If you go back demanding answers, asking questions, you put yourself in danger. They'll kill you too rather than let the truth spread to other tribes." "I don't care about danger. They can't get away with this." "They already have," Tobias interjected. "Boy, I know you're angry, but think. Amora's right. The Kothori won't tolerate challenges to their authority, especially from an outsider. You go back there stirring up trouble, you won't leave their territory alive. And what would that accomplish except making Amora lose the one person who gave a damn about her?" Declan stopped pacing, his jaw working as he fought to control his rage. Finally, he looked at Amora again, and his expression shifted from anger to something softer, more painful. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. If I hadn't offered for you, hadn't tried to take you away." "You gave me hope," Amora said firmly. "For the first time since I was 7 years old, someone saw me as more than a burden or a tragedy. You wanted to marry me not despite my legs but simply because you thought I was worth marrying. That wasn't a crime. What they did, that was their choice, their sin, not yours." He knelt beside her again, and this time he did take her hand. His palm was calloused, warm against her cold fingers. "The offer still stands. I meant every word I said. I want you as my wife, Amora. I want to give you a home, a life, everything I promised. Come with me to the valley. Please." Amora's heart hammered against her ribs. This was what she'd dreamed of during those dark days in her family's hut, what she'd held on to even as the river tried to claim her. But something had changed during her time at Tobias's cabin. Something fundamental had shifted inside her. "Why?" she asked, needing to understand. "Why would you want a wife who can't walk, who'll need help with everything, who can't work a farm or chase children or do half the things a normal wife could do?" Declan didn't hesitate. "Because you're clever and funny and you don't complain even when life gives you every reason to. Because you can weave baskets that sell for twice what others charge. Because children love you. Because you survived a river that should have killed you. Because when I watched you in your village, I saw someone who refused to be broken by circumstances she couldn't control." He squeezed her hand gently. "I'm not a young man anymore, Amora. I'm 43 years old. I've been alone my whole adult life because I never found someone I wanted to share my days with. Until I met you." "You barely know me," she whispered. "So let me know you better. Come to the valley. If you decide after a month that you hate me or the life I'm offering, I'll bring you back to Tobias myself, no questions asked. But give us a chance. Give yourself a chance at the future they tried to steal from you." Amora looked at Tobias, seeking guidance from the man who'd saved her life. He shrugged, his scarred face neutral. Can't make this choice for you, girl. But I'll say this, Declan's offering you a partnership, not charity. He sees you as a person, not a problem. That's worth something in this world. She thought about the cabin she'd grown comfortable in these past days, the simple rhythm of mending nets and talking with Tobias by the fire. It would be easy to stay, to hide from the world in this safe place. But hiding wasn't living. It was just another kind of death, slower but no less final. Yes, she said, the word coming out stronger than she expected. Yes, I'll come with you. The journey took 3 days, each one carrying Amora further from everything she'd known. Declan's wagon was well-sprung and comfortable, loaded with trade goods and supplies. He'd rigged a cushioned seat for her in the back where she could sit supported, looking out at the changing landscape as they descended from the mountains into the broad valley below. They talked during those long hours on the road. Declan told her about his life. Born in Scotland, came to these lands as a young man seeking adventure, built his trading business through hard work and fair dealing. He'd never married because the women in the settlements wanted farmers or hunters, men who'd stay put. His work kept him moving, traveling circuits between villages and outposts, never settling in one place long enough to build roots. Until now, he said on the second evening as they camped beneath a sky full of stars. I'm tired of wandering. Ready to let someone else handle the long routes while I manage things from a central location. The valley settlement is growing, new families arriving every season. There's real opportunity there for someone willing to work. Amora listened, trying to imagine this new life. And you're sure I won't be a burden? I need to be honest, Declan. Simple things take me longer. I can't fetch water quickly, can't run if there's danger, can't help if something heavy needs moving. You're not a burden, you're a partner. There's more to running a household than physical labor. Someone needs to keep accounts, manage inventory, deal with customers when I'm away making purchases. You're educated, you can read and write, which is more than half the settlement can claim. Your baskets will sell well. And honestly? He smiled at her across the campfire. I'm just tired of eating my own terrible cooking. If you can make food that doesn't taste like charred leather, you'll have earned your keep 10 times over. She laughed, surprised at how natural it felt. When had she last laughed? Really laughed, not the polite sound she'd made to avoid making others uncomfortable? On the third day, they reached the valley settlement. It was larger than Amora expected, maybe 40 buildings clustered around a central square, with farm plots spreading outward in every direction. The main road was actually wide enough for 2 wagons to pass each other. Children played in the dusty streets while women hung laundry and men worked in their shops and fields. People called out greetings to Declan as they passed, curious eyes turning toward Amora. She felt their stares but noticed something different from the look she'd received in her village. Here, the curiosity seemed more neutral, strangers wondering about a newcomer, not pitying or judging her disability. Declan's house sat on the edge of the settlement, a solid 2-room structure with a covered porch and a well-maintained garden plot. It wasn't large, but it was clean and well-built, with real glass windows and a stone chimney. A small barn stood behind it, currently housing Declan's horses and some chickens. Home, Declan announced, setting the wagon brake. It's not much yet, but it's solid. I built it myself 5 years ago, thinking someday I'd need a real home instead of sleeping in camps and boarding houses. He carried her inside gently, setting her on a sturdy chair at the wooden table that dominated the main room. The interior was sparse but functional, a fireplace, shelves for storage, a cooking area, and through the doorway, she could see a bedroom with a real bed frame and mattress. I'll sleep on the porch, Declan said quickly, seeing her look toward the bedroom. Until we're really married. Properly married, I mean. I know the ceremony in your village didn't count for much, given what happened after. We can have another one here, with witnesses, make it legal and proper. Or not, if you don't want to. I meant what I said about no pressure. Amora felt a rush of affection for this careful, honorable man who'd bought her as a bride but treated her like a person. Thank you. For everything. For not giving up on me even after you thought I was dead. For being patient. Thank you for giving me a chance despite everything that's happened. He started unloading supplies from the wagon, giving her space to absorb her new surroundings. That first week was an adjustment. Declan installed ropes and handles around the house similar to what Tobias had created, allowing Amora to pull herself from room to room. The settlement women came to visit, bringing food and welcome gifts, their curiosity evident but mostly kind. A few asked blunt questions about her legs, which she answered honestly. One older woman, Martha, had a son who'd lost his arm in a farming accident and seemed to understand the reality of disability in a way others didn't. "You'll do fine here," Martha told her on the third day. "Frontier settlements don't have the luxury of throwing away capable people just because they're not perfect. Everyone contributes what they can. You've got good hands and a sharp mind, that's more than enough." Amora threw herself into learning the household routines. She took over the account books, carefully recording every transaction from Declan's trading business. She experimented with the cooking fire until she could produce decent meals. She began weaving baskets again, using materials Declan gathered for her, and found that settlers were eager to buy them. Declan was patient and attentive without being suffocating. He asked her opinions, listened to her ideas, treated her as an equal partner in building their life. At night, he slept on the porch as promised, though she could hear him sometimes, moving restlessly, and wondered if he was as aware of her presence as she was of his. The nightmares came frequently those first weeks, dreams of cold water, of her brother's apologetic face, of sinking into darkness. She'd wake gasping, disoriented, and Declan would call softly from the porch, asking if she was all right. She always said yes, but they both knew it was only partially true. 1 month after arriving, exactly as Declan had promised, he asked her formally at breakfast, "You've been here 30 days. You've seen the life I'm offering. Do you want to stay, or should I take you back to Tobias?" Amora didn't hesitate. "I want to stay. I want to make this work. I want to really be your wife, Declan. Not just in name, but in truth." His smile was like sunrise breaking over mountains. "Then we'll do it properly. A real wedding, with the whole settlement as witnesses. Make you legally mine and me legally yours. If that's what you want." "It is," she said, and meant it with her whole heart. The wedding took place on a bright autumn morning 6 weeks after Amora arrived in the valley. The entire settlement turned out, curious to see the Scottish trader finally take a wife. They decorated the central square with late-season flowers and colorful cloth streamers. Someone had brought a fiddle, another a drum, and the mood was festive despite the serious nature of the ceremony. Amora wore a dress that Martha had helped her sew, simple blue cloth that brought out her dark eyes, with embroidery at the collar that she'd done herself. Declan had somehow procured a bolt of tartan cloth from a distant trader, wearing it draped over his shoulder in the tradition of his homeland. He looked both nervous and radiantly happy as he waited for her. The settlement's elder, a weathered woman named Elizabeth who'd homesteaded here 20 years ago, performed the ceremony. It was nothing like the brief, shameful ritual in the Kothori village. This time, Amora spoke her vows clearly, her voice carrying across the square. "I take you, Declan Ross, as my husband and partner. I promise to share your burdens and your joys, to build a life with you based on honesty and respect, to be your companion through whatever comes." Declan's voice shook slightly as he responded. "I take you, Amora, as my wife and partner. I promise to honor you, protect you, support you in all your endeavors, and never take for granted the gift of your presence in my life. My home is yours, my future is yours, my heart is yours." When Elizabeth pronounced them married, the settlement erupted in cheers. The celebration lasted all day, food shared from every household, music and dancing, children running wild with excitement. Amora found herself surrounded by well-wishers, women who pressed small gifts into her hands, men who shook Declan's hand and welcomed her to the community. As evening fell and the celebration wound down, Declan carried her back to their house. The door had been decorated with more flowers, and she could smell bread baking. Someone had left them a wedding gift in the oven. He set her gently on their bed, the same bed that had been his alone for 5 years. The nervousness she'd expected didn't come. Instead, she felt calm, certain. This was right. This was the life she'd been meant to have before fear and tradition tried to kill her. "Are you sure?" Declan asked, kneeling beside the bed, his hand gentle on her cheek. "We don't have to do anything you're not ready for. I can still sleep on the porch. There's no rush." Amora took his hand and placed it over her heart, letting him feel how steady it beat. "I'm sure. I was thrown away by my own people because they saw only what I couldn't do. You see what I can do, who I am inside. That's everything, Declan. That's why I'm not afraid." She thought about those words the elders had used to condemn her, that she would curse any man who took her, that her broken body was an offense to the ancestors. They'd been so certain of her worthlessness that murder seemed justified. But lying here with a man who chose her freely, who valued her for her mind and spirit rather than just her body's abilities, she understood that the curse was theirs, not hers. They'd cursed themselves by throwing away love in favor of pride. "My body is yours," she whispered, repeating the phrase that had become her story's title, but giving it new meaning. Not submission or ownership, but gift freely given. Not because you bought me or because tradition demands it. Because I choose to give it. I choose you. Declan kissed her then, gentle and reverent, and she pulled him closer, tired of being treated like something fragile. She'd survived the river, survived betrayal and murder attempts. She was stronger than anyone gave her credit for, and she wanted him to see that strength. Their wedding night was tender and occasionally awkward, two people learning each other's bodies, figuring out what worked when half of hers wouldn't cooperate. But they laughed together at the fumbling moments, and the tenderness between them made everything else fade to insignificance. When Amora finally fell asleep in Declan's arms, she didn't dream of rivers or drowning. She dreamed of the future they would build together. The months that followed brought their share of challenges. Winter came hard to the valley, and Amora struggled with the cold's effect on her legs, increased pain, reduced flexibility. But Declan built her a wheelchair using plans from a traveling craftsman, and suddenly she could move around the house and even venture outside without relying on upper body strength alone. The chair gave her freedom she'd never imagined possible. Her basket business thrived. Settlers traveled from neighboring areas to purchase her work, drawn by the intricate patterns and sturdy construction. She took on 2 apprentices, young girls eager to learn a trade, and found she loved teaching. Declan's trading business expanded, with Amora's organizational skills bringing order to his previously chaotic record-keeping. They never had children. The fever that took Amora's legs had damaged more than just her mobility, the local healer explained. But they built a different kind of family, taking in Martha's grandson after she passed, housing traveling settlers who needed a place to stay, becoming the center of a community built on acceptance rather than exclusion. 7 years after the wedding, a trader brought news from the mountains. The Kothori tribe had been struck by a series of disasters, failed crops, disease, conflicts with neighboring groups. Some were saying the ancestors were angry, that the tribe had violated sacred bonds. Superstitious whispers blamed the death of a young woman thrown in the river years ago. Amora listened to the news with mixed feelings. Part of her wanted to feel vindicated, to believe their suffering was punishment for what they'd done. But mostly she felt sad for the people she'd once loved, her mother who'd turned away, her brother who'd carried out the elders' orders. They'd been trapped by tradition and fear, unable to see beyond what they'd always been taught. "Do you want to go back?" Declan asked quietly that night. "Show them you survived, that their curse was meaningless." She considered it, then shook her head. "No. I'm not their ghost come to haunt them. I'm just a woman who built a life after they threw me away. They don't get to be part of my story anymore. This," she gestured around their comfortable home, at the life they'd created. "This is my story now. And it's a good one." The next morning, Amora woke before dawn and wheeled herself out to the porch. The valley spread before her in the pre-dawn light, fields and homes and the river winding peacefully through it all. The same river that had tried to kill her now provided fish and irrigation, life instead of death. Everything transformed depending on how you approached it. She heard Declan stirring inside, starting the fire for breakfast. In a moment, he'd come out to join her, bringing tea and maybe stealing a kiss while the world was still quiet. They'd planned their day together, his trading route, her weaving projects, the community meeting that evening where they'd discuss expanding the schoolhouse. It was a simple life, maybe not the epic tale of revenge or triumph that songs were made of. But it was hers, built from nothing by her own choices and determination. The Kothori had tried to end her story in that river, but they'd only managed to wash away the beginning she'd been born into, clearing space for her to write a better one. The sun broke over the mountains, painting everything gold. Amora smiled, lifted her face to the warmth, and waited for her husband to join her in greeting another day of the life she'd chosen to live. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.